get that started, we're going to broadcast this to Omaha, so go ahead and videotape it. Am I close enough? Can you hear me? Okay. So this graph is a chart that kind of represents the therapy market as it has gone up and down, the drive for therapy and for therapist jobs as it's gone up and down for the last, when did I start it? 99. So since 98. Since 98. This is from personal data that I've collected and experienced, and it is not drawn from anything other than what I've observed on a national basis through time, okay? So what I did for this was I set it as 10 is the best the market has been or similar to what it's been, and 0 is down where the market is horrible, okay? Or has been really bad. So if we look at, you see where 98 is on there? Does anybody know, you look at 98, things have been going along pretty good since about 1987. 1987, there were some Medicare changes that went into play, and those changes stayed pretty steady up until about 1998. And in 1998, does anybody know what went into place in 98 that affected? DRGs. That was a piece of it. It was OBRA. It was the Omnibus Budget Reduction Act, which brought the therapy caps and the RUG groups into play in Medicare. And when that happened, we saw therapists graduating school. So up here you've got us up here with this wonderful, the market's great, sign-on bonuses are $10,000, $15,000 in rural areas. I mean, times were pretty high at that point. We saw the next year people graduated in 1999 and they couldn't get jobs from school. I know people that sat around a year looking for jobs to have during that time. So that really ran down to 0 or a half. The market was really poor for what we did. All right. Now that market stayed down. It didn't rise very fast, and the reason was because people took time to figure out the RUG groups, all right, and how to use those. And so we didn't see our market really start to grow for about 2 years. And so when you flip around, I wish I'd brought this on the projector, but when you start to see, you get into 2000 and 2001, we start to see that market uptrend up a little bit. And this is because organizations figured out how to make money with the RUG groups, but it took them a couple years to do it. We started seeing them bid per minutes. They started bidding per minute on the Part A services. They started bidding the Part B services on a percentage. So if you don't know, if you've ever studied how that works, places like Aegis and Rehab Care, they're paid for every minute of therapy they provide, okay, on the Part A's, and they're paid a percentage, 75% usually, of what they do on the Part B's, all right? Sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, all right? They just collect that flows into their pocket. So why do you think we've seen efficiency be brought into question as we move through it? Because the more Part A minutes we bill, the more money those facilities make, okay? So that's kind of what has driven that market. So if you look at that, our market started to improve. It started to go up. Now, our quantum went into place in 2002. You can see we're coming up off of that. We recognized the need for therapists was starting to increase, and that climb was going to be an upward climb. And we knew that was going to happen. That was, go back and look at our original business plan, that was the plan, okay? That was what we knew would happen. That leveled out a little bit in 4, 5, and 6. We saw a growth curve. It wasn't as quick. It leveled out a little bit. But then we got into 6, 7, and up to 8. And that 8 spot, we hit a great mark. In 2008, our market was as strong as it had ever been. Okay? Therapists were, again, we were seeing sign-on bonuses. We were seeing great stuff, especially rurally. Therapy was hot. It was needed. It was going on. Okay? And everybody was like, baby boomers are coming through. This is only going to get better. Right? What happened into 2008, first part of 2009? Anybody? You all lived through it. Come on. Your stocks, recession came into place. People lost their jobs. Places We had less people on work comp because less people were working. We saw people that would normally have a surgery done, an elective surgery or a hip or a knee. They said, I'm going to take the pain a little bit longer rather than have this done. So again, the need falls off, and falls off immensely, falls off. Our organization took a hit of about 30% that year. We saw our numbers drop in a single year. So that was pretty tough times. We get into 9 and 10 levels out a little bit, 11 goes up a little bit. We got a little bit better in 11, but 12 brought it back down. And then, does anybody remember what happened at the end of 2012?
The Medicare cuts?
Yeah, Medicare changed again. And we know from history that those big Medicare changes, this wasn't as big as the PPS system, the OBRA stuff, but those things cause the market to reduce again, cause us to drop back down, and we saw that happen again in 2012. So we were able to graph this out, guys. We knew this stuff was coming. In this graph, we could pretty much predict by that time. We knew what was going to happen. So we got to 2013, 2014, we said these are going to be bad years. We knew they were going to be tough years. We had to talk about, okay, how do we not lay people off? That was our goal. We would sit in the office and say, our objective is to not lay people off. How do we do that? We did okay most of the time. There were some times where we had to, just because there was the work just dropped off so much. Now, we also predicted that at the end of 2014, we would start to see an increase, okay? And that's because when you go back and look at the graphs, and you go a year and a half to 2 years out from what happened in 2012, the Medicare change in 2012, the market starts to climb. And it stayed exactly true to that form. We saw that start to occur, all right? And when it starts to climb like that, out of those Medicare places, those big changes, we see this dramatic curve up, all right? And that's what we're in right now. We're at the bottom of that dramatic curve up. We anticipate this market continuing to grow, seriously grow, and push for the next 3 to 4 years that we know of. Now, there's outside factors in that. We don't ever know what's going to be legislated through Congress or what CMS is going to do. If CMS gets a wild hair and decides they're going to change things and make things work differently than what the system is currently, it can have huge impacts. I don't think that'll happen. The other piece, if you look at this, and you go back to 87, remember I talked about 87, there was a big change. 98, there was a big change. 2008, we had that. They waited until 2012 to put the other Medicare things in place because we had a recession. That slowed down what Medicare was doing. Okay, Medicare said, we don't want to hurt the economy. They slowed down. They waited 4 more years, put something in place. Once we knew we were coming out of the recession, we saw that dip back down. It's about a 10-year cycle that we see things happen on the CMS side. Big, significant things. It's not that they can't do it anytime they want to. It's just that it takes long periods of time for them to actually implement the changes that they want to make. All right, so I think we're probably in a pretty good market, and it's probably going to be up in the mid-20s before we see huge changes to what we do that impact us like those Medicare changes did. So that's good news for us as therapists, that our market's going to be decent as we go. The last little piece of this, and then I'll turn this over to our presenters. We really did not anticipate that the PTA market and the CODA market would come back. We really thought those markets were so oversaturated that there just would be less and less need for what we did. Good news is we're starting to see those come back. I think the programs have toned down the number of applicants that they've had come through. I think that they had to start telling people, we can't guarantee you're going to have work when you come out of school, and it's been positive. We've seen smaller numbers come through. So that market's growing, and we didn't anticipate that market was going to grow, but it is growing. And that market's actually pretty strong in the travel market. We're seeing a lot of big needs for traveling CODAs and PTAs. So anyway, I wanted to graph that out because I don't think a lot of times you guys get to see that big long picture. I think if you're employed, you're kind of oblivious at times to what that market's done and why it's done it and how it's done it. But it's very involved with what we do. So, thanks for listening. I hope it was something that was interesting. At this point, did everybody get the handout for the fees?